An alien abductee has come forward and publicly revealed the plan extraterrestrials have for humanity in the next few years. After being abducted by aliens for the last 17 years of his life, the anonymous abductee says he wants to share his experience with the public so they can learn the truth about extraterrestrials. In an online post on a popular conspiracy forum, the alien abductee reveals how aliens are able to communicate via telepathy with each other and humans. The secrets about Earth's history hidden from us by our rulers. How the universe came into existence, it was not the Big Bang or God according to these beings. What the future for the human race holds. Full disclosure, revelations of an extraterrestrial encounter. My name is Redacted. I'm redacted years old and I'm going to let you know right away, there's a whole lot to digest about who I am, why I'm here, and what I've gone through in my life. The thoughts that will go through your head as you read this have kept me awake hundreds of sleepless nights in my life. I've questioned my sanity many times over, but I assure you, in every way possible, I am quite sane. I'm not endorsing this story, or saying it even really truly happened. I'm only saying I believe this happened to me. I could be crazy. I could be getting used to spread distraction. I don't know. I'm just going with what's gone on in my head over 40 years, and saying it like it is. Just keep in mind, if I was telling this for any other reason than a true love for this planet, I'd be telling it to a Hollywood agent or book publisher and charging you money to read it. I'm not. We all have our reasons for being drawn to the esoteric. Mine was UFOs. Not my interest in them, but their interest in me. It started when I was only 4 years old. And it's gone on ever since. My first experience was a face-to-face meeting with a strange little being. We communicated by telepathy and that connection remains today. It's a one-way kind of communication. I've asked a million questions but never really got an answer to any of them. Well, except for one, I suppose. I guess she must be able to hear me. The one question I asked the most was answered. It just wasn't the answer I wanted. Naturally, I wanted to know what was going on, and I always heard the same response. When it's time, you'll know. I've gone years with no interaction, but she always comes back. Yes. The being was female and quite motherly in her communication with me. She tells me things about myself and about them, and about this planet. And its history. Seems I've been at this for quite some time too. I'm a very old soul. She's recently told me a bunch of things that, in all honesty, I already knew, sort of. I know one thing for sure. Amongst other things, I'm a warrior through and through. That I didn't need to be told. But just how much of a warrior, I had no idea. Unfortunately, having the heart of a lion only gets you so far. And for me, it's never been far enough. That's why I've learned to fight with my mind this time. Even though I spent a lot of my life in a subculture of violence this time around, I see now I had to be there to unlearn the ways I've always handled my confrontations. In this life too, but more so in my past lives. I really am tired of all this. It's been long enough. Too many people have died thinking we could beat them, the elite force controlling the world, in a physical confrontation. They didn't start actually abducting me until I was 31 years old though. And I prefer to think of myself as taken, not abducted. For the last 17 years it's been an on and off again thing. I'd just gone 5 years without any contact or communication incidents, but in August 2016, like 4 months ago, things got very serious, very fast. Life was as normal as I think it's ever been for me. I was realizing the sole purpose of its existence was to keep the one from becoming lonely again. Number 2 decided to leave. At the time, Number 2 didn't realize it, but the choice to leave introduced some new things to the universe. Conflict and free will. Number 2 took up residence in a far-off corner of the universe. It didn't take long to realize though, it was all alone. As the one had divided itself to solve the same problem, so too did Number 2. But Number 2 didn't want to face the same dilemma, so it divided into 6 equal individuals. And they quickly set out to develop this corner of the universe into their very own version of what the rest of the universe would be like. The result was a galactic society of miscreants led by what would come to be known as the Six-Headed Beast. The division into 6 individuals had corrupted key bits of knowledge and understanding from the consciousness of the whole. This lost knowledge was the reason all the creatures that were created to reside on the planets in this sector had no soul. Some of these creatures were worse than others, but none of them could actually be considered good. They are flesh and blood creatures who only live for a certain length of time and die one day. We were created the way we were, with a soul, for a reason. The Centaurians wanted to create an intelligent worker who would live on Earth and be responsible for maintaining the integrity of the Garden of Eden. Tending to this garden would be an extremely delicate, and sometimes dangerous program. They needed leverage to ensure compliance to the job. Also, since free will and conflict had come into existence when number 2 left, it was decided that from this point forward, immortality would have to be earned. So it was decided that a promise of immortality under certain conditions would help motivate this creature called a human being. Humans flows a pure form of energy that binds both parts to one another. A telepathic connection that allowed the 2 parts to communicate back and forth was also a very useful feature for completing the work projects tasked to the humans. The half which existed on Eden would work in the lab as a genetic scientist to create new life forms. When these plants and animals were cultivated on Earth, the process would be conducted by the Earth halves of the scientists whose team had invented the specific species. This way the scientist and the botanist or biologist could share information to ensure a well cared for and properly designed product was the end result of their efforts. This telepathic connection was also a way to never forget home and in times of struggle, a voice of reason to offer advice. A friend, so no matter what, no human would ever be alone, like the one had once been. You likely won't believe me yet, but that voice in your head, your conscience, is actually what's left of the telepathic connection to our counterpart on Eden. Of course today we are raised to believe thinking anything other than it's your own voice will get you mortality. On Earth everything living has an expiration date, meaning one day it dies. This applies to everything except for one thing, the human soul. When a human died on Earth, the soul ascended to Eden for evaluation. If it was decided the soul was ready, the 2 halves would merge into one immortal being. However, if it wasn't ready, the soul would experience something called reincarnation where it was sent back to Earth in a new body. The human would then encounter a more difficult path designed to address the issues that kept it from achieving immortality. This complex 2-part creature would be the prototype for a whole new approach to the concept of being alive. If successful, humans could be placed all over the universe. As the Centaurians hoped, the evolution of the Garden of Eden, and its new occupants, was a great success. After nearly 100,000 years of evolution, only one major change was made to how this system would operate. It was originally the plan to allow unlimited reincarnation and guaranteed immortality eventually. However, there were unforeseen issues that arose from that idealistic view. The result was a decision to permit 10 chances to get it right and earn the reward of immortality. By limiting reincarnation to 9 times, the decision to populate some of the other planets that had been seeded into life with humans, had passed the scrutiny of the one. By the way, I told you which star system Eden exists in without fear, but it's one step closer. So they really need to be stopped before they get there. As I said before, I'm an old soul. And I've tried more than once to stop those responsible for what I'm trying to tell you, during several of my past lives. Obviously, I've never been on the successful side of any of the battles that have taken place in an attempt to gain control of our own destiny. I'm sure you've realized something must have gone terribly wrong someplace along the line. Earth is quite obviously not being billionaire boys clubs are not on the up and exist to serve ulterior motives. They have created, implemented, and enforced a system of corruption, greed, control, and hostility for thousands of years. The roots of these shady organizations have been traced back to the time of Jesus. The last attempt to confront these corrupt, power-hungry, tyrants was in the early 1300s. A very wealthy group called the Knights Templar, that was aligned with the Roman Catholic Church, had found out some extremely sensitive information about Jesus and the Bible. Having expressed concerns though. Once you know why, and what is at stake, you'll understand why I've made it my choice to suggest we confront these men, and these lies, and try again to rid this planet from their control. The elite tyrants who control us using money, work hand in hand with the ones who destroy some of us by taking our soul. The Roman Catholic Church is the real controlling influence behind those running the world, enslaving mankind, and destroying this beautiful planet. There is no one more powerful than the guy with the funny hat, the Pope. None that are human anyways. The Pope is always chosen from a secret, and very long list of bloodlines that go back thousands of years to a time when giants roamed the earth. Yet I just said that. But it's gotta be said. And someone had to say it. And that's always been my role. To sound the alarm. But this time my call, will be heard. This time, the world is ready to hear it. You are ready to hear it. The age of information has brought a new dimension, one we have never had available before. If you haven't realized it yet, she told me, it's time. This time, we have the ability to unite worldwide. And we will. And we are. I can feel the soul of every warrior who ever lived and died at the hands of the elite. All of them. They're all here. Some already know it, most don't, but you all will. The universe will not let you rest until you accept the responsibility of fixing what we have always allowed them to do to us. The elite aren't exactly like us, in case you haven't noticed. There is an empty, void, hole in all of them. The world really is an us vs them situation. You may believe we are all one and some spiritual awakening is on the horizon, but please, know this, there are two different species living together here on Earth. Humans. And half-breeds. And no, they are not shape-shifting reptilians. In all ways they are identical to us, except for one thing. They don't have a soul. When they die, they are dead. That's it. No more. They are manufactured. These soulless shells I'm talking about are the elite. And they know what they are. Predators. Nasty, sick, twisted, predators. There is another group of people who also suffer an impairment of their soul, but they have no idea anything is even wrong with them. At least they have a soul, even if it has been shut right off. As long as it's there, all hope is not lost. It's imperative if we want to experience any kind of freedom again, what you are. And what you need to be, if we ever want to free ourselves from this nightmare we've all been tricked into living. I guess tricked isn't the best choice of words either. They didn't trick us, they genetically modified us is what they did. And what I'm about to tell you now, is where things get intense. What you think you know about the history of Earth and its many different inhabitants, are all lies. And it's the job of the Church, to protect those lies. And the reward from protecting those lies, goes to the enforcers of the lie. The Illuminati. The Freemasons. The elite. Their reward is your life of servitude. And every man, woman, and child belongs to them whether you admit it, or not. Because the elite know they are soulless shells of what we are, they hate us. Once I explain what they are lying about, and how far they've gone to protect the lie, you'll understand just how much hate for us they hold. The only other things that interest them are material riches and the thrill of feeling somehow superior as they treat us like garbage in a ruthless pursuit of the almighty dollar. And we allow it because deep down we feel like our souls will live on regardless. But that was the old way. Soon you will realize how, like me, you've avoided the trap and reincarnated here, over and over again. Until we get this done, we will continue stuck in this loop, doomed to watch history repeat itself again and again. And I'm going to tell you why. There was an invasion on Eden, and they lost. The Centaurians are peaceful scientists, not warriors. The Anunnaki, a race of soulless creatures from the far corner of the universe developed by the six-headed beast had come seeking knowledge. They required technology to save the atmosphere of the planet they came from, Nibiru. But Eden refused to help them. They were not in the business of cooperating with any of the soulless abominations created by the six-headed beast. And the Anunnaki replied in force. In the process of taking what they came for, they also discovered the location of Earth. They left Eden in near ruins, and made off with some very sensitive, essential information about all life, and about planet Earth in particular. The Anunnaki first arrived on planet Earth during a cleansing period. Once all of the different species were properly sampled and classified, or if circumstances required it, the scientists in charge would initiate a cleansing. The eradication of the old, to usher in the new. The idea being to repeat the same process with new varieties of plants and animals, as they were developed and created on Eden. This particular ice age was also to repair. Humans had one purpose and couldn't do anything else even if they wanted. But it was love for their home and an outright refusal to damage, destroy, alter, or manipulate the Earth at the Anunnaki's request that kept them from conforming. The Anunnaki even tried, unsuccessfully, claiming they were the ones who created the humans. However, at that time the Anunnaki were unaware of the connection the humans had to their other half back on Eden. The humans knew exactly who had arrived. The Anunnaki were in fact, very intelligent creatures. However, a series of genetic manipulations performed on the male humans would solve the problem, or so it was believed. One by one, the male humans were captured and injected with a DNA upgrade that would eventually regress on the rate of change in these creatures. The Anunnaki had an amazing gift bestowed by the six-headed beast which created them. They had the power to shape-shift, or transform into whatever they needed to be. So they took on human form. Enki stood among the humans and watched as the other Anunnaki boarded their ship and left Earth. At that point the changes to the human mind had not taken over yet, and as the ship left, a legend was born about the ones who came from the sky in black clouds that burned in the sky. And in telling this legend, the first of the changes began to materialize in the hearts and minds of the recently injected men, as fear crept in and filled them with a brand new perspective on life. This new emotion clashed heavily with the very limited emotional database humans had been living with up to this point. It only took a few generations of reproduction for Enki to realize something had gone wrong though. By this stage there should have been significant changes in the way this creature's mind worked. But the change was minimal at best. These creatures were learning to simply adapt, and somehow they retained the sense of self-worth they had always enjoyed. Frustrated, Enki began a series of experiments on his modified humans. What he discovered shocked and amazed him. In ways he could not understand, it appeared this creature was in fact, two creatures. Enki began to decipher a series of files that were part of his spoils of war from the invasion of Eden. And what he learned, he could not believe. These creatures had something called a soul. Totally different, understanding to live by. It was the act of leaving the one, which number two had done in the early years of creation, that gave all creatures free will. Free will would, in the eyes of Enki, become the most favorable of gifts bestowed on creation by the six-headed beast. And Enki was prepared to take full advantage of many of the gifts he possessed if it meant immortality. The children of Enki were a powerful group. They had no soul, but they did have some of the strengths that made Enki such a powerful creature. One such quality they acquired was a lifespan much greater than a human. On average, these children would roam the earth for up to 5,000 years. Another, was their size and strength. The males in particular reached heights of 10 feet, weighed nearly 800 pounds and had the strength of 10 men. The reaction of the population towards these massive creatures, who otherwise resembled humans, is what gave Enki the idea which ultimately resulted in our current state of world affairs today. Enki had his children roam the earth in search of the worst human beings alive. It was now apparent just how wrong some of Enki's experiments had gone. Murderers, rapists, thieves, and tyrants made up a decent part of the population. When they found these offenders, Enki's children made an example out of them and slaughtered them all in public settings. They then told the remaining humans the type of behavior these bad humans displayed was against what they were willing to accept from this point on. The children of Enki claimed their role as gods among men. They presented their absent father as the one, creator of heaven and earth, and promised anyone who crossed them or their father, would meet the same fate as the many men they had recently slaughtered. The humans began to cower in fear at the sight of these massive half-humans. And they would go to any length to secure the favor of these gods if they could. The reason Enki was going to such great lengths to deceive the humans, should be of great concern to every human alive. Enki had been successful in his attempts to capture a human soul as it ascended to Eden. What he learned from this was, and still is, a very frightening prospect which affects us as human beings to this very day. Enki had found a way to harness, drain, and absorb the unique type of energy the human soul contained, into his own system. And by doing so had accepted, the descendants of Enki's children continue to hold control of the world. And they still have no souls. As observant, intelligent, and cautious as Enki was, it turned out he wasn't quite as secretive as he thought himself to be. His obsession with the soul had made him careless. Much to his surprise, he realized Marduk had been left behind and was hiding in plain sight, living on Earth in human form. And he had discovered why Enki had gone to such extremes creating this elaborate system of control over the humans. Being left behind, Marduk was angry. And he hated this planet. He was looking for a way to seek revenge on the human race. Like most deviant minds, he blamed all things, except himself and his lust for human women, for all of his problems. When Marduk discovered the secret Enki was keeping, he documented everything, including how Enki was taking credit for all creation and falsely claiming to be the one. Marduk used the evidence he had gathered to blackmail Enki into providing him access to the technology so he could consume souls and become immortal as well. As miserable, angry, and pissed off at the world as Marduk was, there was no surprise in the way he chose to win possession of the souls he meant to acquire. He played on the worst of the human traits that had developed in the unfortunate victims of Enki's obsession with genetic manipulation. Traits like greed, anger, jealousy, and corruption were Marduk's signature approach. He would provide material riches such as money, gold, precious gems, and even sultry women. Once his intended victim became obsessed, he would make a trade. A life of gluttony, control, and power, for simply agreeing to spend eternity with him in the afterlife. Marduk painted his own picture of an awesome place to spend eternity, which also would attract its fair share of humans. Like Enki, Marduk had succumbed to the sex appeal of the women of Earth. He had a large family of part human, part Anunnaki children and grandchildren just like Enki. He brought them all together. But rather than operate like Enki and create an opposing faction of towns and cities of their own, Marduk decided his approach would consist of infiltrating and corrupting the system of control Enki had established, from the inside out. In response, Enki had the church add a story that told of a fate worse than death for those who would take up sides with Marduk. To join with Marduk meant your soul would burn and be tortured forever in a truly evil, sick place called hell. And just as this battle for human souls really got going in full swing, it came to a sudden stop. In a stunning display of its intense capability, the One appeared suddenly out of thin air. In the next instant, swooping from the sky, came a small fleet of spacecraft which landed very close to where the One now stood, today, here in 2016. Enki was quick to approach Marduk with a truce. Considering all that was at stake, the two opposing Anunnaki warriors decided to join forces and unite their families. The One had only asked Enki and Marduk to leave. Their families were permitted to stay on Earth. They had no souls, so were of no interest to the One. At this point Marduk went into hiding. Enki, on the other hand, used his ability to shape-shift one last time, as he too disappeared from the face of the earth, never to be seen in his true form again. Enki transformed himself into a fertilized embryo in the womb of a descendant of his own family, a young woman named Mary. 9 months later Enki died of their own. The residents of Eden had begun abducting humans a couple hundred years ago. They hoped the process of reversing the genetic manipulations that Enki had performed could be discovered. It turned out to be impossible. Much of what Enki had done was now a permanent part of human life. Regardless, they had a plan B. And once more the humans were subjected to further genetic modifications. It was a tricky process. The human host had to physically die. Then their soul was captured and manipulated. A jolt of electricity was used to bring the human back to life. And that was it. The altered soul returned to the body. The human was released back to where it was taken from, unharmed. This method wasn't the quick fix needed, but in the long run, it would be more effective. This addition to the soul didn't change the person who received the upgrade. It was designed to create change in the offspring of the recipients. It was a process that would take a very long time, but it would eventually produce some very different humans. They would look the same as everyone else, but their hearts and minds would be far more in tune with the needs of Mother Earth and her occupants. And the best-case scenario would result in the re-establishment of the telepathic connection of the two halves of which the authentic humans had shared. And in the early part of the 1900s, the very first indigo soul arrived on Earth, a quirky Australian man named Errol Flynn. The long-awaited results started to trickle in, until the human population has endured so far at the hands of Enki and Marduk. The union between the children of Enki and Marduk was very powerful. And very corrupt. For almost 2,000 years they have worked hand in hand to ensure the secrets and lies of the past stay buried. The Church knows all the lies. It's their role to protect Marduk and Enki and keep them alive by ensuring a steady stream of our souls arrive to be consumed. It was also a key component of the plan to ensure that the world never finds out how two Anunnaki madmen fooled the world with the story about Jesus and Lucifer to enslave the world. If you haven't caught on, there is only one way to win back the Garden of Eden. Enki and Marduk have exceeded their lifespan and are vulnerable. The source of their immortality, our souls, is all that is keeping them alive. A recent surge in spirituality and atheism has weakened them. The Pope is above all. He commands the legion of soulless tyrants who have taken over the world. They have crafted a web of deceit and corruption in the never-ending lust for power and control of the entire planet. And in doing so, they have enslaved us all. We are bound to them in several ways. The most powerful way is something called the monetary system. The almighty dollar. Value is placed on a worthless object, a simple piece of paper for example. That object is then provided in great quantity to most anyone with the ability to repay what was borrowed. By charging a substantial fee for such a loan, these tyrants in control of the monetary system are making a huge profit at our expense for doing absolutely nothing. They have found a way to control every aspect of our lives. They control food production, food quality, and food distribution. They control energy production and distribution. They control access to water, healthcare, education, and a whole long list of other essential services. If $1 of profit can be made, they have found the way to make it. And they have introduced a massive array of distractions which draw our attention away from everything they do, TV being one of the most potent distractions of them all. War is another distraction, and the profit earned is 10x the return of any investment they would ever allow us to make. The value of weapons of war are greatly overinflated. The elite own factories that produce these weapons. Then governments all over the world purchase these weapons using government funding. Of course it means there will always be a reason for war. And these nasty, sick monsters have about sucked the world dry of financial security.